Welcome to the Franklin County Varsity Sports Report, the only show that provides you with the best insight and information to everything Franklin County sports. And now here's your host, Bobby C.
Hello and welcome to the Franklin County Varsity Sports Report. I'm Bobby C. I want to welcome you here today. We're excited about another week here, and finally, we can honestly say that we have enough material to be able to talk about this spring season. Believe it or not, the biggest problem of spring sports so far has been one word: weather, or two words: Mother Nature. And it's been very sad for a lot of these athletic directors. They're having a really hard time right now as they're trying to fit as many games as they possibly can without hurting these teams. What I mean by that is when you're dealing with softball and baseball, you have pitching issues when you're playing 4 games in a week. You know, a little bit different in softball than it is with the kids that are playing baseball. A lot of these kids that are playing baseball, they can't go and pitch 2 games in a row at 7 innings apiece like the girls can in softball. It's a little bit of a different strategy that the coaches need to use. And right now, Mother Nature surely has put a damper, pardon the pun, on the spring season. Want to welcome our wonderful underwriters to our show here once again. The 4 Leaf Clover Restaurant in Berniston. Also Denny's Pantry, Berniston Road in Greenfield. Lisa Albert of Albert Hearing Services. 33 Riddell Street in Greenfield. And by Sean Hubert in Hubie's, the Tavern and Restaurant on Avenue Way in Turner's Falls, where on nice days, the patio is open. Yes, get that patio open and let's start getting better weather here in New England. Well, let me tell you, man, it has been a weird year so far. And the nice thing about our show today is we're going to start off with a very positive note. Olivia Joy, the great slinger who can pitch like no other girl here in Western Massachusetts, was able to get herself a special feat this past week. She was able, a week ago today, she was able to get her 500th strikeout in her career. You know, think about this. She only started as a freshman. So 500 strikeouts. That is a lot of strikeouts, folks. You really think about some of these kids, they're probably playing 18 games in a season. Even if you did 10 in a season, you know, 10 per game, there's 180 strikeouts. 10 in a game average, that is huge in softball. So think about this. 500 strikeouts. She still has a whole senior season left ahead of her. Greenfield's only played a couple of games this year. So they have an awful lot of softball still left, and she is sitting at 500. So I look at it this way. It took her a little overflow of 2 games from last year's season. So between the start, where she started as a freshman, halfway through the season, she's really played 2.5 seasons worth of softball with 500 strikeouts. That is pretty good for Liv Joy. And what a great kid she is, too. Well, she had an opportunity to be able to shine against a team that is very talented, Mount Everett. They end up winning a game last week, 4-1. That game was played over at Vets Field. It was a very nice game for Liv, and it was very important for their team to be able to knock off a team that a couple years ago ended up beating them back in 2016. And they also are a team that really has been a thorn in the side of GHS softball. Well, they had a chance to be able to get it back, which is what they did. And they ended up beating Mount Everett at home 4-1 last week. And Olivia definitely showed why she's one of the best pitchers around, because she ended up having a great day herself. Nice final score of 4-1. She ended up having a no-hitter that she ended up having earlier this year, too, with a game over against Ludlow. So this team's really, really good right now. And they ended up really getting things started last week with their season. And it was a nice start for them to pick up that big win against one of the better teams they're going to face this season. And they had a tough week because they not only had to face Mount Everett, they also had to face a very good Hampshire Regional team too. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later in the show. You know, you talk to Coach Lovett. She'll tell you that Liv is a very important part of this program. You know, this is one thing that we can say is that Greenfield has finally turned softball into a program now instead of just a team. They've been able to do wonderful things over the last few seasons. They just seem to get better and better. They're bringing up some good talent as well. Nice feeder program they have through the Greenfield Girls Softball League. So things are really starting to heat up for some of our local teams, including Turners Falls and Frontier, who are also having very good starts as well. So a nice start right here for the Wave. Yes, a very good team that they were able to beat in this team from Mount Everett. Can let you know that some of the things that happened in that Mount Everett game were good hitting from Audrey Brusciano, Kelsey Richardson, also Reagan Hickey had a couple of hits too. And we can always say that Dodge has been a very big part of this team now too. She has a lot of offense, and she ended up with a beautiful double and ended up with a couple of RBIs that she was able to get in that win over Mount Everett. Well, last week, the Greenfield boys baseball team got things underway, and really, they were riding the pitching and the hitting that day of Kyle Devlin. Kyle Devlin ended up having a great day. The senior had a good day at the plate. He also pitched well, and it was a nice win for the Wave as they ended up knocking off Mohawk. Final score was 14-2. Devlin finished with 3 hits offensively as they out-hit Mohawk 14-4. On the bump, he ended up doing well too. Ends up with, 6 innings worth of pitching and was able to do everything he needed to do to be in control in this one. It's exactly what he was, and his team ends up picking up the victory. So really, it was a close game early. It was 2-2 in the 4th inning, but then the Green Wave really broke it open as they ended up scoring in the 4th inning and ended up really putting on the heat with 7 runs that they did in the 4th, and all of a sudden it was a 9-2 lead, and they never looked back. I can tell you that Owen Phelps ended up joining Devlin with 3 hits on the day. Also, Hunter Campbell and Jared Hart, they registered 2 hits apiece. Nate Hazelton, he ended up with a single. He also had a pair of RBIs. Cam Rice and Ryan Cody each had a single and an RBI as well for Greenfield in the victory. Well, Belchertown took on Pioneer last week, and boy, what a bummer it was for Pioneer in this one as they were leading 5-0. They ended up getting beat 6-5 because Belchertown ended up scoring 6 times in the bottom of the 5th inning and picked up the 6-5 victory. Jason Quinn ended up with 3 hits and an RBI for Pioneer, which was leading in this one, like I said, 5-0, but it wasn't enough. Jack Loud ended up with a couple of hits. Jacob Quinn ended up with a single, and Nate Massot ends up with a hit as well, where Jared Hubbard struck out 3, and he walked 5 in the loss for Pioneer. Very tough loss for the Pioneer Panthers in that game against the Orioles of Belchertown. Well, a softball easy win for the Turners Falls Thunder. These ladies are so good, so talented, and so well coached. They end up beating Ludlow in 5 innings. Final score, 23-0. 23 runs in a 5-inning game. That's right. Piece of cake, as they say. So they walk off with a big win. Turners Falls did everything that they needed to do. And, I got to tell you something, folks. They were supposed to start their season the first week of April. They just had their first game against Ludlow last week. So Turners is way behind right now on getting the flow going for their 2019 season. But we can say that that was a nice win for them. After falling, after really being scoreless, it was 0-0 after 2 innings. All of a sudden, they just broke it open. They scored 23 runs in 3 innings. Wow. The Thunder did everything they needed to do to pick up the win. Coach Mullen says this: sometimes you need that one person to get that first hit, and then it gets contagious. And then everybody starts to get on the old hit parade. Well, that's exactly what happened for the Thunder in this one against Ludlow. Another bright spot for Turners Falls was that their bottom 3 hitters ended up having good days as well. So everybody pitched in It was a complete victory for the Turners Falls Lady Thunder. Nice win for them. By the way, sophomore Katie Reynolds, she ended up hitting her first varsity debut home run. How about this? A granny. She hits a granny in the fourth inning. And how sweet was that? And that really put up a nice number for her. Also, classmate Jade Tyler, she ended up picking up where she left off last season. She ended up with 3 hits on the day, including a double, 4 RBIs. Good old Cassidy Wozniak, she ended up with a single, double, drove in 4 runs. Olivia Whittier, Haley Bogus, 3 hits apiece. Lexi Lacey, she ends up with a double. Allie Murphy, Juliana Rode, Taylor Murphy, well, they had a hit and an RBI as well. Everybody pitched in for the win for the Lady Thunder. Well, the Frontier Lady Redhawks got a good softball team this year, and they end up winning 10-2 last week. Another double-digit offensive performance that helped Frontier. They ended up having a game earlier this season as well, so they have picked up 2 victories with that win over West Side. The Redhawks scored 10 runs for the second time in many games as they end up winning their second one with a nice victory, 10-2, over in South Deerfield. They ended up with a nice win, and Natalie Denkowitz and Macy Ring, they end up with 2 hits apiece. Ring drove in a run as well. Also, Olivia Dean, Ariana Walker, they end up getting some RBIs as well. Walker, Dean, Maddie Fifield, also Mandy Fuller, Olivia Vasilio, they all had hits in this one. And in the circle, Olivia Dean did all 7 innings of work. She was in the circle. She struck out 2. Also gave up a pair of hits, but that's okay because she did very well on the day, and they picked up the win, 10-2. So a very nice job. And also, one thing we must note is Frontier also played error-free baseball, or softball that is, in that matchup. So nice job by the ladies at Frontier. Well, the guys from Turners, they're starting things off well in boys tennis, and a very good tennis team they have. They end up beating St. Mary's. Final score was 5-0. I can say that Brian Poirier ends up being a winner. Also, Brody Trott ends up being a winner. Also, there's the doubles team of Joe Koshin and Josh Gollin. So they ended up doing well. So congratulations to them. And also, a couple of guys who ended up getting their first single doubles win of the year, and that is Mike Boyle and Corin Wisniewski. So congratulations to those guys. They all did well, including Will Turn. So 5-0 Turners with a win over St. Mary's in boys tennis last week. Well, in boys baseball, last week, it was East Hampton taking on Turners Falls. Turners Falls had a chance to win this one, and they end up losing in 8 innings. Final score was 5-4 East Hampton. Yep, a kid by the name of Nick Susi, a very good athlete from East Hampton, ends up getting that walk-off single in the bottom of the 8th inning, and they picked up the victory. Turners, as of last week, was 2-2. John Fritz ends up with an RBI single. It ended up making that a 2-2 game at one time. Then the Thunder ended up taking the lead 3-2 in the 6th. Trailed 4-3, entering the 7th, where Ryan Campbell ended up singling and eventually tying, thanks to Fritz getting a nice RBI single and plating Campbell to give it a tie game. All of a sudden, things looked like they were going to be able to win. Well, didn't work out that way. They end up getting beat in 8. I could say that Ryan Campbell, John Fritz ended up with the offensive effort of doing well at the plate, 2 hits apiece. Also, Kyle Dodge singled, drove in a run in the 6th inning. Jack Patala started with 3.5 innings of pitching for Turners Falls. Squad ended up with 4 different pitchers throughout the game, including Brian Murphy, Kyle Dodge, and James Robeson. So there you go. Tough one for the Turners Falls Thunder. They got beat by East Hampton in extra innings. Well, Frontier proved how good they are in boys baseball. They end up knocking off Smith Academy. Final score, 14-0. But here's the problem in this one. How about 14 walks that were given by Smith Academy pitching? Wow, 14 walks in a game. Whew. You know what that's called? Patience. And it's very hard to have when you're in a game like that. Because you're like, am I going to get a pitch? Are you going to, like, throw me a pitch, kid? Will ya? Throw me a pitch. All right. Then you can launch it. That's the key right there. You got to be thrown the pitch. But 14 walks on the day, 14 runs for Frontier. Easy win over Smith Academy. Well, Belchertown took on Mohawk last week. Despite a solid outing on the bump by Cam Lococo, I could tell you that Mohawk committed 8 errors. 8. Now that will get you in a lot of trouble. 8 errors, you know what that usually equals? An L. An L stands for a loss. So there you go. 6-2, Belchertown picking up the victory. Lococo, nice game though. You know, he struck out 7, only walked a couple, but wasn't enough because of the errors that were committed by his team. Tyler Dubrio, also Cam Hoff, and also Cam Lococo, they each had 3 hits on the day, but wasn't enough as they get beat in this one. Once again, final score was 2 many to 2 less, 6-2. Well, last week, it was a big game for the Frontier girls team as they are continuing to roll on. They want to keep winning as many games as possible so that they can get a really good seed for tournament time. And through 3 games, nothing slowed them down. They took on Ludlow, and they ended up beating Ludlow 12-0. A nice, easy win for them. They have been able to do very, very good things. And I can tell you that 2 pitchers combined for a no-hit shutout. Olivia Dean, Natalie Denkowitz did a great job as they ended up winning easily in 5 innings. Frontier, they ended up improving to 3-0 on the young season with that nice win. And I could say that they've done an awesome job at being able to outscore other opponents. How about after 3 games, you have 32 runs and your opponents only have 5? That's a great start for the Lady Redhawks. Excellent job done by them. Olivia Dean struck out 3. She also walked 3 in 4 innings of work. Then Denkowitz came in. She ended up striking out a batter in a scoreless 5th inning as they wrapped up the victory. Olivia Vasilio, she ended up finishing with 2 hits to help the team's offensive attack. Also, Lily Spencer, she doubled, drove in a run. Mandy Fuller added a single with a pair of RBIs, and Skylar Berniski ended up with a single and drove in a run. Nice win for the Lady Redhawks. Well, Turner's Falls girls, they took on Belchertown. They went easily in 5 innings. Final score was 13-0. Allie Murphy, Jade Tyler, they smacked home runs in this one as they beat Belchertown easily on Wednesday. Taylor Murphy, also Mercedes Morales and Olivia Whittier all finished with 2 hits in the win, with the trio all registering a double as well. Lexi Lacey finished with 2 singles and an RBI. Also, Jade Tyler, she ended up with 4 RBIs to pace the offensive attack. It was a nice win. Everybody did what they needed to do to be able to pull off this victory. In boys tennis, it was Greenfield taking on St. Mary's, and they picked up the 5-0 victory. It was a nice effort done by their team. Right now, Greenfield, as of last week, 2-2 on the season. Well, it was another big offensive performance last Thursday as the Turner's Falls, the Lady Thunder, ended up doing everything they needed to do to take on a very good Athol team. How good? Athol has been able to get it done this year in boys and girls between baseball and softball. Well, it was a close game. Final score was 6-1. The Thunder end up picking up the victory. And another nice day, Lexi Lacey ends up doing everything that she needed to do offensively to help out Jade Tyler, who ends up with 10 strikeouts in this one. Lacey goes 3 for 4 on the day. Tyler just allowed 1 unearned run to help Powertown pick up the victory. Lacey ends up helping out the Thunder offensively so far. Right now, she is averaging in her first 3 games an average of .667. Take that any day of the week. Amen. That's good stuff right there for Lexi. Coach says she's hitting the ball well. today she was right on it. Most of her hits have not been cheap. Everything has been earned. The one thing he said about Jay Tyler is that she has done a nice job finishing. She did have a little bit of struggling work in the beginning, but really started to put things into perspective as she was able to be the pitcher that we all know and really took control and picked up the victory on the mound. And Lacey, like I said, 3-hit performance. And Tyler and also Taylor Murphy ended up with a couple of hits to lead the Thunder. One thing Mullen said, he said, watch out for Athol. They're going to win a lot of games this season. And if you hear that from a Hall of Fame coach, you know that that is valid. Frontier, those ladies continue to rock and roll, and they end up winning against Marhar 10-7. Marhar couldn't have asked for a better start in this one, though. They really set the pace as they scored 5 runs early. And all of a sudden, they put a 5 spot on the Lady Red Hawks. Well, that all changed because all of a sudden, Frontier just started to come back. After trailing in this one 6-1 after 2 innings, they all of a sudden started to go to work. And before you knew it, they ended up picking up the 10-7 victory. Nice job right there by all the ladies to be able to regather themselves. Frontier on the young season as of that game on Thursday ends up with a record of 4-0, 1-0 inside of the division. Ariana Walker, Natalie Denkowitz did a nice job on the day. Also, Lily Spencer really stepping up to the plate, as well as Macy Ring. Really, everybody sort of stepped up and did what they needed to do to be able to pick up this victory when they were sitting in a hole of being down 6-1. Charlotte Doulette, well, she paced Frontier's offense with a couple of hits as well. Denkowitz and Fifield ended up with a double and drove in a couple of runs. Olivia Dean ended up with a 2-bagger as well. So a nice job by Frontier. Well, the Hampshire girls, they are good. And I'm going to tell you a little story here, folks. They have a girl who is going to be an unbelievable pitcher. She already is. But can you imagine what this kid's going to do over the next 6 years? Did you hear me right? I will say 5. Let's go 5 years. Just sounds a little better because she's an 8th grader. 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th equals 5. Good job. Glad I was able to earn my special certificate when I got my math class certificate back in the day. So Hampshire picks up a huge win over Greenfield. That's right. Greenfield got beat by this really good Hampshire team. That's right. It was a rematch of last year's Western Mass Division II semifinal. And guess what? A girl by the name of Jocelyn Meady. She is legit. 8th grader struck out 12 Greenfield batters en route to a 5-2 victory. Matter of fact, if you talk to Coach Lovett, she'll tell you it wasn't our day. It wasn't. We didn't play well. But look at this girl. She's an 8th grader. She's disciplined. She throws BBs. She is the fastest pitcher we have seen so far this season. So think about this, folks. 8th grade. You played a quality Greenfield team. You struck out 12. What is in the future of Jocelyn Meady? Lots of good things, as long as she stays healthy. So a big win for Hampshire Regional over Greenfield. I can tell you this, though. When you don't hit the ball, it's going to be tough for you to win in this type of an atmosphere. Because when you're playing the good teams like Hampshire, Frontier, Turners, those, even Athol, those teams, they score, they will win. It really comes down to the offense to be able to dictate on where it's going to end. Will it be a victory for you, or will it be a victory for your opponent? Well, a big win for Hampshire Regional over Greenfield in girls softball last week. Well, I thought this was pretty cool. As cool as said, how about when a daughter meets her father in a coaching game? That's right. You know, the Franklin County Tech needed a softball coach this year, and a longtime guy who has been around for many years to coach football. He's also been able to coach a little bit of softball of his daughter back when she played in the Greenfield Girls Softball League. Well, now he is the coach of the Franklin County Tech girls, and his daughter is the head coach of the Mohawk girls, who, by the way, the Mohawk girls got a pretty good team too. Got some good softball around here, you know, and I'll tell you right now, it was the daughter who ended up getting the best of dad in this one. Final score was the Mohawk Warriors with an easy win over her dad. It was 25-2. They ended up with 16 hits, Mohawk did. You know, the Tech school ended up with 6 errors in this one. They only had 4 hits on the day. Ashley Reynolds, also Grace Ward, Alicia Johnston, Bloomer, Moon, Guy, Lily, Upton, they all just did a great job hitting the ball. And a nice job for Bloomer in this one. She ended up with 5 innings pitched. She only walked 2, 6 strikeouts. But it was a tough one as the daughter got the best of her dad in this one as Mohawk easily picked up the win in 5 innings. Final score again was 25-2. These two teams, they're going to meet again on May 9th. So hopefully Dad and the ladies over at the Franklin County Tech School can be able to make things a little better. Well, the Turners Falls Thunder, after they got beat by that East Hampton team, they needed another victory, and it was a team rivalry game between them and the Franklin County Tech. And guess what? It went to extra innings. Yes, it did. John Fritz walked with bases loaded in the top of the 8th inning, and Kyle Dodge stranded a pair of Franklin County Tech runners, and they picked up the victory 7-6 at the Tech school. So that's the hard part, man. You ended up losing on a walk. The Tech school took it on the chin with a walk on that one. That's really tough. But the Eagles still having a very good season. They ended up literally cutting the deficit from a 6-1 game to 6-3. Then they tied it up. And then all of a sudden, you're back looking at extra innings for the 2nd game in a row for the Turners Falls Boys Thunder. And of course, they looked a little dejected, according to Coach Minkler, when they were coming back to the dugout, knowing that they were going into extra innings. But they were able to pull it off in the 8th, and a nice job done by those guys as they were able to pick up the win. Franklin County Tech School, though, put a little pressure on Turners Falls, trying to see what they could do to tie that game up. So it surely ended up being a very good game. Can run down a little bit about what happened in this one. Can tell you that the Franklin County Tech School did out-hit the Thunder 12-7. Also, Sim Manietti ended up with 3 hits, an RBI. Also, Jared Cole ended up with 2 hits and 2 RBIs. Max Lay ended up with a pair of hits. Max Charest ended up with 2 hits and an RBI. Lay ended up pitching the first 6 innings, striking out 3 and walking 4. Camden Latamaki ended up doing well with 2 hits and an RBI. He's only an 8th grader. John Fritz, also 2 hits. Kyle Dodge with a couple of hits. So here's something I wanted to share with you. Turners Falls is playing pretty much a Division III schedule. So, being in Division IV, they have a special system called the Sullivan system. And here's how it works. You play 6 games of your schedule that are against Division IV opponents. If you win 3 out of 6, you're automatically in the playoffs no matter what happens with all of those other Division III opponents. So think about this. You're playing a 20-game schedule. You only have to win 3 of your 6 Division IV games, and you're in the tournament. Just say, for an example, that's all they did, and they lost the rest. Turners can go into the playoffs with a 3-17 record in Division IV with the Sullivan system because they're playing up, not down. So that means that they have to win 50% of their Division IV schedule. Well, they've already won 2. All they have to do is win 1 more of their final 4 they have to play for those Division IV opponents to be able to be in the playoffs. Let's just lock them right now. Turner's Falls boys, ching, they're in the playoffs guaranteed. There's no way they will not get 1 victory out of the next 4. They are a pretty good program. Southwick, I want to talk about this kid. This kid is one of the best pitchers in all of Western Massachusetts. By the way, his name is Bart Shea, and this kid has been on fire. He is throwing in the mid to upper 80s in high school baseball. Let me say that again. Mid to upper 80s. Do you know that Chris Sale has only been throwing in the upper 80s all year long? He might have had a few pitches that have been in the 90s, but for the most part, he is like way down right now. This kid's throwing BBs, and he threw a shutout against Greenfield last week. Final score was 2-0. Their team didn't need a lot of offense. They needed Bart Shea. Bart Shea was incredible. 12 strikeouts on the day. He did everything he needed to do to be able to really shut down this Greenfield team. But he is considered one of the best pitchers in all of Western Massachusetts, and he surely proved it in that game against Greenfield. You know, I got to say, I feel bad for the starting pitcher at Greenfield because I think that Owen Phelps did a great job. He ended up with 6 strikeouts. Tough loss for him. He only gave up a couple of hits, a walk, and of course he did give up the 2 runs too. But still, he did everything he needed to do to keep his team in it. But it was all about Bart Shea. He got the shutout, a no-hitter against Greenfield last week. Well, Granby ended up beating Pioneer, an easy victory for them. Final score was 10-2. It really was a lot of problems that Pioneer was having on the day. It was them giving up a lot of hits, and not only that, but not being able to produce enough offense on the day. They only had single runs in the 4th and the 7th innings. Cam Dresser ended up with an RBI for the Panthers. Jason Quinn, Nate Musso, and Ryan Potter each had 1 hit in the loss. Quinn ended up suffering the loss in this one. Also, Musso ended up with 5 innings of relief, striking out 4. So, tough loss for the Pioneer Panthers. You know, last year, the coach of Greenfield's tennis team, pretty cool guy, by the way, too, Andrew Varnon, he told his players that he's going to start wearing a kilt to his matches because he thinks that with the rebuilding of the team and the rebuilding that they're doing of the program, that maybe it'll boost him a little bit. Who would have thought that a kilt from a coach would be your boost? I don't know about you, but listen, Bobby C in a kilt, that is a scary thought, my folks. Scary thought. Maybe on Andrew he can get away with that kilt, but I can't. But I'll tell you what, if I'm going to motivate a team, I'm surely not going to motivate my team with a kilt. Let me tell you that right now. That's just not going to work out. But guess what? The kilt worked because Greenfield picked up the victory last week. And yes, the kilt must have done good things because all of a sudden, they're off to a pretty good start. They are on such a good start that they have a good chance to make the playoffs. Good job, Coach Andrew. Yes, the kilt seemed to be the weapon that he thought his team needed for some added boost. Okay, you know the old saying, whatever works. Well, the Turners team, they've had a great year this year, undefeated. They picked up a 4-1 victory over Sabas. Nice job right there by their team. Matter of fact, Brian Poirier picked up a win. Also, Will Turn picked up a win. The doubles team of Joe Koshin and Mike Boyle, they picked up a win too. So a very nice job done by those guys. And also Brody Trott also picked up a victory too. So Turner's Falls with a 4-1 win over Sabas. They are doing very well this season, sitting at 4-0. Well, it was a good softball matchup between Greenfield and Mohawk. That game was played last week, and it was played over at Vets Field. And it turned out to be a pretty good game because there was some action going on in that 9-4 win. Greenfield ended up hitting 3 home runs, used a big third inning to really stave off the upset-minded Warriors who were looking for that win. Mohawk, 3-2 on the early season with that loss, did everything they possibly could to try to win this one. They took the lead 4-1 in the top of the third inning, but the Green Wave started to get things together. Which, by the way, they had a 3-run double by Caitlin Johnston that turned out to be a biggie, and a nice RBI single by Maya LaSure that gave Mohawk the boost they needed. But all of a sudden, Greenfield did respond. Audrey Brusciano, Sam Smith, Kelsey Richardson. All of a sudden, Reagan Hickey stepping in there. Raquel Provost. All of a sudden, things started happening, and the Wave picked up the win at home. Matter of fact, Coach Lovett says this: we came off a not so very good game the day before when we got beat. But we ended up getting a 4 spot against us early, and we found a way, whatever it took, it lit a fire under our butts. Yeah, sometimes that's what you need. You need a little fire under there to get a little firepower going. But then everybody from the Wave started to join the hit parade, and they picked up the 9-4 victory. Olivia Joy, she struck out 8, did not walk a batter in the complete game victory, although the Warrior hitters did collect 9 hits on her. So they had no problem being able to hit Olivia Joy in this one. By the way, Maya LaSure, she ends up with 3 hits. Grace Ward, 2 hits. LaSure, she was on the hill. She ended up walking 6. Did not strike out a batter in 6 innings, and she was the losing pitcher. Franklin County Tech girls, they took on Gateway. They got beat. Final score was 22-10. Summer Gaudreau, that is, she ended up with 2 hits, 2 RBIs in the loss. Also, Haley Kirkalonis ended up with a hit and 2 RBIs for the Tech school. Well, in boys baseball, a much-needed win for the Pioneer boys team. They end up beating Smith Vocational 9-6. Didn't come easy, though. Let me tell you that. It was a big effort from their ace, Jacob Quinn, timely hitting. Yes, it was that 5-run 4th inning that helped Pioneer pick up the win 9-6. Quinn gave the young Panthers exactly the performance that they needed to be able to pick up the victory. I can tell you that Smith Folk was leading in this one 3-1 heading into the bottom of the 4th inning. All of a sudden, the bats started to come to life, which is what we want to see, right? We want to see these kids start hitting the ball. Well, all of a sudden, Nate Musso started to get hits, and Jack Loud started to hit the ball, Jason Quinn, and all of a sudden, things started to happen. Quinn ended up with 3 hits, including a triple, drove in a run in the win. Cam Dresser ends up with a couple of hits and an RBI. Nate Musso ends up with 2 hits and 3 RBIs. Jack Loud with 2 hits and a run batted in. And Ryan Potter ended up a double in this one as Pioneer picked up the win against Smith Vocational. Well, it was a tough loss, and everything you could do to win a game was done except for the final score, where Mohawk got beat by Wacona. Mohawk did everything they possibly could last Friday to win it, and they ended up losing in Dalton. You know, the one thing I could say is Jackson Hicks did a great job pitching. He had a strong performance, and honestly, the Warriors out-hit the Warriors of Wacona 9-1, but the score is what says it all. Hicks ended up with a single and a double. 0-5 now for Mohawk on the season, and Jordan Grenier ended up with 2 hits in the loss for the Warriors. Well, Westfield Tech ended up beating the Franklin County Tech School 7-0. You know, I got to tell you this. When a coach says this, it's got to get nipped in the bud real fast. You ready? Hopefully this game is a wake-up call for some of the egos that we have. Hopefully it deflated some of those egos on our program. That's what Dan Prasol said about his team. Second loss in as many days, but that one really stung the coach too. And that's why he probably said what he said to his team, is that it's a team sport, guys. Put your egos, leave them at the door, come to play, be ready to play. If we want to get to playoffs, if we want to do well, we have to play as a team. Good call right there early in the season by Coach Dan Prasol. Well, it was a tough loss for the Lady Redhawks. That happened in the rain. As we record this show on a Tuesday, this game was played on Monday. And it was that nice rainy Monday where we were sitting waiting for the rain to come later in the day after a beautiful start with lots of sunshine. It all changed. And it changed in this one also for the Lady Redhawks. What do I mean? Well, Frontier had the tie and run in scoring position in the bottom of the 7th inning, but the pitcher from Taconic, Mary Lee, ended up shutting them down. Frontier gets their first loss of the year, so they're now 4-1 on the season. It was a tough loss for them, but hey, they played a very good team from Taconic, and they have a lot of great things they need to be excited about. Livia Dean, she pitched 7 innings. She ended up doing well in the circle. As a matter of fact, she struck out 2, walking 5. Lee ended up striking out 8 in the complete game for Taconic. So they get beat in the rain yesterday, the Lady Redhawks. Turner's Falls girls, you ready for this one, folks? This one is unbelievable. They're playing a game against Granby, okay? They're winning 16-0 after 2 innings. Granby only brings 9 players. And according to the rule, it is Rule 4, Section 3, Article 2, it says that if you play with less than 9 players, you have to forfeit the game. Well, a line drive shot that was hit up the middle hit the pitcher of Granby in the leg. She was out for the game. Her team had to walk off the field in a forfeit. So, here's how it plays out. Those 16 runs are okay in the fact that all those hits that were done by Turners, they all count. But the pitching does not count. So, even though Jade Tyler was on the hill, she gets no credit for that game because it was considered a forfeit. And here's the other thing. On paper, the final score was only 7-0. Because it turned out to be a forfeit, they only give the team 1 run for each inning played. So the final score really was 7-0 due to the forfeit, and Granby literally had to forfeit their game. And that game was in Turners. Just imagine, you drive up, you come play a far distance from Granby all the way to Turners to literally have your team have to walk off the field because of a forfeit due to an injury to your pitcher. That's just a really sad situation that happened in that game. And I really feel bad for that pitcher from Granby and her team that was the circumstance. The other thing that bothers me too is that Granby girls are only playing with a 9-person roster. That could be disastrous if somebody else gets hurt in other games this season. Wow, I can't believe we finally got a show in. You know, you really think about this, folks. We've talked about this. 3, 4, 5 games, some of the girls. Frontier girls are an exception to the rule. They've already got 5 games under their belt. Pioneer boys, 3-2. They've got 5 games under their belt. Just so the way that they've been able to avoid some of those rain days. A lot of these other teams haven't. I mean, look at the Turners girls, 3 games on the year. That's it. Greenfield girls, only a few games on the year for them. You look at the tennis, only got a couple games a couple of matches that have been able to be played. You haven't heard me talk much about any good old track and field, have you? No. They aren't going to let the kids go on the tracks and do all this running on rain. It's dangerous. They can't have the kids throwing shot puts and throwing javelins in grass that's soaking wet with mud. These kids are going to hurt themselves. So we are fighting Mother Nature right now. Mother Nature is winning the battle of starting the 2019 season here in the Pioneer Valley. But it's going to be a lot trickier for a lot of these teams when it comes to the month of May, because there's going to be a lot of makeups. There's going to be a lot of shuffling that's going to have to go on with lineups. There's going to have to be shakeups on who's going to pitch. Pitching could be a problem for teams who don't have any depth in pitching. It can really come back to bite you. And that's the one thing they don't want to happen, is to have anybody get bitten as they're fighting for their playoff lives. One good thing, though, we talked about earlier, Turner's Falls boys, hey, you played up this year, guys. So now you only have 6 Division IV games that you have to worry about winning 3 of. You've already got 2 under your belt very early in the season. Looks like they will probably be the first team that will make the playoffs due to the Sullivan rule. And that is that they only have to go 500 with teams in their own division. And like I said, I know it's not going to happen because it's not, but could you imagine the team ended up with a 3-17 record and they end up going into the Division IV playoffs as a guaranteed team in because they only had to win 3 of 6 games? That's just how the Sullivan rule works. And a sad one in Turner's Falls, seeing Granby have to literally forfeit a game early in the year due to an injury to their pitcher because they didn't have enough players to field against Turner's due to that injury. Well, we wind down another show. We're having fun. The new season's here. We have a lot of excitement coming, and I want to share some news with you. We here at Greenfield Community Television are going to be doing a game of the week that is going to be starting with our first game. That'll be the game between the Turner's Falls girls and the Pioneer girls on a Friday night game that we are going to be able to be there for. Jeff Terrell and I, we're going to be the guys behind the mics. Our cameramen will be John Meisner and Philippe Simone, our producers. They will be putting everything together. We have got a host of underwriters that are going to help us out in this, and we're going to run a 5-game schedule that will run every week during the month of May. So we'll have 5 games that we'll be doing, including a big matchup between Greenfield and Frontier boys baseball. We also will have the big matchup between the Greenfield girls and the Frontier girls in softball. And of course, the 2 big games, which will be Greenfield and Turner's, at Turner's and at Greenfield. So those will be our 5 games that we will carry. We'll carry 1 baseball and 4 softball games for you as part of our Games of the Week. It's all beginning, folks, and it's all starting to come together. We've decided that it's time for us to not only do this weekly show, but also to add a little extra footage to our television stations. And we're very excited about everything that we have going on. So as we say goodbye, we want to thank our underwriters for you. We want to thank the 4-Leaf Clover Restaurant in Berniston. Also, Denny's Pantry, Berniston Road in Greenfield. Albert Hearing Services, 33 Riddell Street in Greenfield. And by our friends at Hubie's Tavern and Restaurant, Avenue A in Turner's Falls, where, yes, during the good days, the patio is open. For Philippe Simone, John Meisner, and all of us here at Greenfield Community Television, also down at the FCAT in South Deerfield and at Montague Community Television in Turner's Falls, we say, support your local teams, and thanks for watching the Franklin County Varsity Sports Report. Take care, everyone.
Thanks for watching the Franklin County Varsity Sports Report on GCTV. Catch a game and be sure to join us next time for more sports and fun.